my wife was saying, look, if you don't want to play, just don't bother going.
It's fight or flight. That's speed dating, George. Speed dating. I don't know what's going on with you. That's speed dating, and someone doesn't have a date.
No.
Is the problem.
No. This is actually in front of quite a large audience.
Courage. Now, I actually have a little diary or a calendar. It's one of those calendars with motivational sayings on it. I try to be positive every year. Actually, it's the same.
Only every year,
because it has no days on
right,
it. So
it has no days.
It's just June 9th, and today's one, just to go with the synchronicity of the universe, it says courage. Courage is resistance to fear, mastery of fear, and not absence of fear. And that's Mark Twain. And fear is something we were talking about in previous episodes, and fear of the unknown, of fear of the known, fear of the unknown, fear of change, fear of retribution, fear of humiliation, and just plain afraid of the dark. But courage is what we're talking about here, and that's on the other side of fear. The
interesting thing about courage is it's not, as you said, it's not the absence of fear, because most people that have courage are very fearful. But what they're doing is they're facing their fear, and they're taking it head on as a challenge. And one of the definitions that I've just found here, it says courage is the ability to do something that frightens one. So it's bravery. And the other one is to have strength in the face of pain and grief. And you've been talking a few times about pain and pleasure, but pain is...
Oh, hold on. I was talking about pain and pleasure in the same sentence. I hope the hell that's not STM or something else.
I think the idea was that basically most people don't want the pain, they want the pleasure, so they'd actually fear away from the pain. Whereas in many cases, we need to actually face the pain to get through to the other side.
No pain, no gain.
Yeah.
We touched on that a couple of times. I think it's one of the Chopra's laws again. If there's no pain, there is no actual gain. There was nothing attained. There was nothing. You didn't. Same with courage. If there was no fear, then were you courageous? I mean, you can be blindly stupid and look courageous to others, but if you were indifferent to it and it was unknowns to you the danger, then were you actually courageous or just plain stupid and too stupid to notice that what was in front of you? Now, we're not talking about that. We're talking more about. There's going to be there isn't really any gain unless there's some pain, something that you have to do, something you've got to go through, and you have to. And that might entail getting over the fear and the fear being the bunny rabbit in the headlight of being stalled and just can't get that little momentum or energy or motivation to move forward. Not necessarily out the headlights in terms of the bunny here, but. I was a bunny in the headlights for years. I said that before on a previous video because I was startled into not doing something and I didn't notice the time it passed me by. I'm no longer startled. I've got a little bit of courage to move forward, not to worry about what happens next. The fear could pop its head up every now and again, but it's to be aware of it and give measured responses to it and not let it take control.
And usually what the problem is that fear is again, we've talked about it before, the chatterbox inside our head. We end up spending more time coming up with ideas of what we think the problem actually is, making it more and more complicated than it actually is. Whereas if we stopped thinking about it and just got into doing it, we'd find that it's not as complex as we thought it was. It's actually quite simple. And in fact, in most cases, our best bet is to simplify the tasks that we need to do down to the very, very basic, simple things so that we can actually accomplish them as small steps and stop seeing them. It's again, that molehill. See it as a molehill, not a mountain. And then we can get over those little hurdles, and before we know it, the time will have gone past and we've actually gone through the thing that caused us the fear in the first place.
Actually, my son, my son Max is considering changing schools. Now, normally you'd be saying, well, he's considering changing schools. What's your thoughts on that as an adult? Normally, if I went back in time, I'd be thinking, you don't have a choice on that one. You're in school. You're in there from the beginning to the end. There's no real choice. But we're being a little bit more lenient and realising you have to be happy, where you are. And it's not that he's not unhappy, he just thinks he'd be happier somewhere else. Now, I was trying to apply laws like Chopra's law of, I don't know what it is at the moment, but the law said that ask the universe, but don't come up with your list of answers and A, B's and 2 lists at the moment. Just ask it, and then whatever gut feeling you have is the subconscious talking to you. Do you want to change schools? Yes or no. It's binary, and then just go with it. And it'll be, well, if you want to go, it's because you're not happy here and you feel you'll be happier there. And that's the decision. No amount of ABCs and 1, 2, 3s of lists on both sides now should change that, because you already knew all those things. You already had gone through all those things. And because you know that, because you arrived at this, I don't want to be where I am, I want to be somewhere else, then you already know you're unhappy where you are and you feel you'll be happier somewhere else. So take the courage of your convictions and act on it. Now, in his case, he has to get it by us. We're now aligned with him and going, we want you to be happy, and if you feel that that's the best decision for you and your future, then we will facilitate it. And we're getting rid of our fears of swapping schools and acting as good parents and going, no, we know where he's coming from. One life, good life. Let's maximize it and let's help and facilitate that for him.
And I know I had a son who, in the second year of a degree course, felt that he wasn't sure whether he should continue or whether he should quit or what he should do. And the obvious thing would be to say, well, carry on. But what we did was we started to say, well, how do you feel? What's making you feel this way? What would happen if you did a number of different alternatives? And we got him to talk through the process himself without trying to push him in one direction or another, because we knew that at the end of the day, he had to be happy in the options he had chosen. And he in the end, he chose to stay on and do the course. Now, he wasn't overly happy with what degree he got, but having finished to that point led him to a number of different opportunities that arose. And now he's in Canada with a wife and working for a great job.
We were talking about courage, and probably because of my personality or your personality, we flipped courage to be the opposite sign of fear. And no, so you have to go through fear to arrive at courage is what we're really saying here, as opposed to be courageous. No, be less fearful. I think I'm coming from. And most of the time, we don't even know we're fearful.
Yeah.
We don't even know there is a fear. We're calling it something else. We're afraid of the unknown, but we're not even saying that. We're not aware of these words. We're just don't want to try something new, or don't realize this is the language of where we are now, and what not happy means, and not trying something new means. It means not having, being a bit afraid of the unknown, not having the courage to step through the unknown and try something new and change and grow. But it's not fear in an Oxford Dictionary definition of sense, I don't think.
Well, I wonder about that, because I know that about 3 years ago, it's actually this time of the year, because my son took me as a birthday treat to go and do something called 9-10. And what it was that over 9 minutes, 10 people got to tell a story.
That's speed dating, George. Speed dating. Well, no, I don't know what's going on with you. No, that's speed dating, and someone doesn't have a date. No, the problem.
No. This is actually in front of quite a large audience, and so it happened in Rostrevor, and I thought, well, look, I'm going to do the one in Rostrevor. I went along, and I actually did it on courage. And what it was I took my violin, and I'd never played my violin in public ever at all. I hardly ever played in public music-wise to anybody. And
the audience were in fear of what they might hear, knowing that you'd never played. You see,
but the thing was that I did a 9-minute talk on how, as a youngster, I'd always played on the stairs because I was always frightened to play in front of people. I was very nervous about playing at that time the euphonium. But here we were 3 years ago, 2017, and I was telling the story about, it was taking courage to face this fear. And at the very end of it, I said, so for me to face my fear now, I'm going to take the courage and play in front of you all 50 people. Now, what was interesting from that was I did it. They applauded me. I thought it was quite good. I then went and took another step and thought, well, where's the captive audience where they can't run and bolt? Church is a good place. They wanted someone in the choir, so I played the violin in front. Again, what was interesting was that having faced that fear, you get a kind of, I mean, my wife was saying, look, if you don't want to play, just don't bother going.
It's fight or
flight.
There's a bit of fight or flight.
You've got to face that fear.
You got a little bit of a buzz from it. And it's apprehension beforehand. Yeah. But when you get through to the other side, there's a sense of release and enjoyment
or euphoria
of success.
Yeah, there's a euphoria.
And these are small little projects. It's like it could be half an hour in a church, playing 5 minutes of something. To a captured audience, as you said, they're going to be nice. It doesn't really matter. You put yourself out there. You enjoyed it. You're a bit apprehensive of it.
The interesting thing about that is, again, on another occasion, I was basically told by the organist, right, George, it's over to you. You're just playing your violin on your own in front of 300 people. And I was kind of, are you kidding me? Now, my wife just said, bail out. I said, no, I'm not going to chicken out. I'm actually going to go for it, because if I can't do this, what can I do?
Now, this is interesting, because sometimes I think you need to be put on the spot, or you will never start. And it's like my daughter the other day going, let's run. I go, run. I've never ran in my life. Barely ran for a bus. And then it says, just start moving those. I was talking to a friend of mine, and he says, Garvin, you're not running. It's just your beer belly is weighing you forward, and you're just falling forward gracefully with your legs trying to catch up with you. So when you're running, you pull that core in, and you're upright, and you're not damaging your back, and you have a bit of purpose about you. I'm just doing it. Now, I might be doing it a bit better each day, like one after another, but no one's watching, no one is criticizing, no one cares. I was doing
But in a situation that I found myself in, you knew you had...
There was an audience.
Now, what was interesting about it was that I played on my own. The violin is not the best instrument to play in a large auditorium like that. On its own, you need to be accompanied. But I went through it. I actually found some introductions, played the introductions. But I played an introduction and then went to play the first verse, and the audience didn't join in. So I had to play all the way through. But I had to keep my nerve and not give in, and just go through as though everybody was there. Do you know what I mean? Just let it happen.
You're put on the spot.
You have to do it.
You can... again, you don't have to do it.
That's the challenge.
You can step up.
Yeah.
You can step up, and you can just do it. I think actually Richard Branson said, it's nearly fake until you make it. If you get offered a good opportunity and you don't know how to do it, just say yes. You'll catch up with yourself.
Here's the other thing. The fear was that I'll make mistakes. It'll all go to pieces. I'll have to stop. And I actually did have a couple of occasions where I got it wrong and did stop a couple of times on when the organist was playing. And then I was told, no, carry on playing. So I carried on playing. So I faced that fear. I got through that fear. I took the courage through that one. But the other thing was that you whenever somebody came up and then sort of said, oh, we enjoyed it, and you were saying, oh, they're just being nice, I would say, but you didn't hear all those.
No, I told you the other day, George, I'm going to run up and say you're shy.
I know you're doing that.
It's no point in everyone coming up saying, oh, no, I like the ones that come up and give the affirmations, but there is a critique. If you were shy, you were shy. End of story. Yeah. But if you were good, you were good. And if it was, you were just...
One of the problems I think most people have is that quite often our hardest critic is us. We actually end up criticizing ourselves so much that we actually crush ourselves
before we ever did it.
But quite often when someone actually does come up and say to you, actually, I enjoyed that, they've had courage to leave their seat and come down and actually say what they thought. If they didn't think that, they could have turned around and walked out. Unless you're the person that sat beside me, who sat behind me, and when I sort of said, well, we got through that, you forgot to do an introduction.
But again, it's not about functional. It's not about what, as you said before. It's not about the 5% you forgot. It's the 95% you did. It's a fact you did it. It's a fact you started. If you fail, get back up again. Get back on the horse. Unless you shoot the horse is still there. There's an audience. It might be that audience might be there next week. They'll see your growth. If it's not that audience, it might be another audience. My fear when I was younger. Well, I went off on 50 years of doing something, not enjoying it, but I don't think I pursued a journey which popped itself into my vision and path a few times. Whether it be, I was a model for a while, believe it or not. I was the only model that didn't model. I was on TV commercials, by accident. Yeah, I ran a nightclub for just one night, and there was no music. It was Marcel Marceau, but it didn't matter. The entertainment industry and the film industry and the advertising, it presented itself, and at that time, at my young age, I said, I wasn't ready for it. I was afraid of social media didn't exist then back in the good old mid-80s. I was afraid of people I didn't know having an opinion about something I hadn't yet done, that I didn't even know whether it was going to be done well or not. I just couldn't step forward. I couldn't step up. I couldn't step out. I couldn't step out of the shadows. This forum right here, right now, what myself and George are doing is the audience might be 1 and 2, it might be yourselves, it's a voice we're finding, it's addressing this fear. Well, I'm addressing a fear of stage fright for 50 years. I'm hoping I'd be able to get up on a stage in front, like you, George, an auditorium. That you just saying that is already, I have itchiness in the back of my head going, if I had to get up on a stage, what would I say? Geez, I have no problem talking. I don't even need a subject. I know I can talk. I know I can say something. I think my fear is being up there and be expected to be the expert, and that's on what I don't even know. So afraid of an unknown, which is ridiculous when you can just get out there and do something will do. And it doesn't matter if it's a job or learning to do a career and doing a presentation. It's finding your voice and realizing it's not the end of the world in 99.999% of the cases. It's just find your voice, be you, and actually engage with this type of fear, because that's actually growth.
I think so. And one of the biggest problems is that we tend to, you need to prepare to do things, and maybe in what we're trying to do, it may be thought of that we haven't done a lot of preparation, but we've actually.
Oh, you're damn right. Yeah, I've done. No,
but we've talked about
53 years of preparation. Believe it or not.
So one of the things that we have is that. You could sit there and kind of go, I haven't done this, or I haven't done that, I haven't got the right equipment, I haven't got this, I haven't got the other. And you come up with a whole load of blocks that are actual blocks that can get in there. Whereas what we need to do is when we have a conversation with one another, we pull in resources on the fly. Whatever comes into our head, those things that kind of trigger.
We're delving into the subconscious
archive. And quite often what you need is to have that released, which I think is what's happening with us, is that we're starting to let out those things inside us. And that's where we are experts. We are experts because we have got over half a century each. Between the two of us, we've got 100 years worth of experience.
What we are experts on is being ourselves. Yes. Well, no, I'm realizing my expertise is me. And I don't care if someone doesn't like that, someone else might. But at the moment, I've got to like it, and that's the first customer. The first customer is yourself. You've got to like you. If you don't like the you you're looking at in the mirror, then do something about it. Actually, I liked what you said a second ago there, because it reminded me of, even with my own son, and myself in particular, I will come up with the 10 reasons why not first, as opposed to the 10 reasons why I should. If you ignore the 10 reasons why not and only come up with the reasons why you should, these are the growth reasons, because you'll have this new experience, you'll learn something new, you'll meet new people, you'll go to new places, it'll be something to do that we won't have to worry about losing that moment in time where you did a no thing. Do anything in a no thing time. Just do something. And that's what I'm realizing. fill the time with things you want to enjoy, and don't worry about the future because you're going to get there anyway. And in the meantime, it's to grow, go on that journey, and go on the journey to the yellow brick road. And I'm going to talk about Oz shortly. George.
Well, I know, and I think we've mentioned this before, but I've prepared. I spent many hours preparing for a certain class that I was teaching, and the distance between the beginning of a hall and opening up the classroom door, I suddenly realized that if I was to use that piece of work I'd lovingly put together for about 7 hours beforehand, I would basically lose my audience. I'd lose my class.
Will to live. No, you lose your will to live yourself. Yeah.
But by listening to what was happening, by listening to the students, going through,
I thought, sorry, George, there. I thought my thing wasn't recording there for a second. And the fear of God went in me, and the courage to go on stopped. I was looking at this audacity, and the audacity was, it didn't look as if it was recording. Then I had a shock and realised I was listening to you and I wasn't saying anything. So that was fine. It wasn't recording you. Sorry for interrupting.
But that's the fear coming in. Yeah.
I said, George, it'd kill me if I'm not recording all this good stuff.
And you had the courage to admit it. That's the key. And there's something else as well. Having the courage to admit when something's not quite working and that something needs to change even within yourself. There's courage that needs to take.
Stick your hands up and go, honestly, I don't know. I haven't a bloody clue. And many a time I had to do that in various jobs and projects, and just went, actually, I remember one of my first jobs as a student in London many a year ago. While being a student and going to work in the summer months, I said I knew something. It could have been spreadsheets. I didn't know a damn thing. I didn't know how to turn the on button on. And I went into I think it was Citibank, and the girl was there. I was a good-looking chap. I was a model. I think I told you that. So here is a 20-year-old, good-looking Irish lad, lots of personality, if I don't say so myself, over there talking to a nice young girl in London, and she was going to train me up in this job. But I just went into bunny rabbit mode. I was in the headlights. I didn't know how to turn the computer on. I was in shock, and I wanted to be the expert, and I didn't want to have to learn. I just wanted to know, and she was willing to teach me. What was worse, I got up, turned around, walked out the door, never to be seen again. And I think I got a job a week later as a toilet cleaner for in an old folks home, which was interesting to say the least. But it was no Citibank job with a good-looking woman beside me. So the shock. It's to get over. I should have just waited 5 more minutes, had a cup of coffee, and just relaxed. And you would have. I knew nothing. All I could do was learn. If all I did was turn up.
One of the problems that most people have is they keep thinking that we all have to be experts. And so a lot of folks go off and do all this training. He says, looking at 9 certificates in whatever he's done. And you end up spending all this time thinking that you have to become an expert. Whereas in many cases, the actual interaction with other people and being there and gaining experience on the job is where you're going to become the expert, because you build up your confidence in doing that. So the key thing is those things that may be frightening you to go forward, or it may be that you do want to get an education. It's something you've always wanted to do, but that's a different thing. It's not trying to become an expert. It's trying to learn something. But the skills that we learn through just by engaging and taking that first step, having the courage to go off and do something, I think is the most important part of that journey. Now,
actually, this is where I'm going to jump back in, because
it's actually quite good, because I suddenly forgot what I was trying to get.
You looked as if you were running out of steam there, and I was going, what's popping into my head is Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. And courage is the cowardly lion. And the cowardly lion, and then what I suddenly realised was I loved that film. I saw that film 100 times, but never in the context of psychology or growth or journey or happiness and family. And so Yellow Brick Road was the journey to the unknown wizard and what's behind the curtain. And we all ask ourselves, what's behind that curtain? For most of us is we don't know, and what it is we're frightened of it mostly. And the cowardly lion, when he went on the whole journey, he realized that what it was he was on a journey to get his courage, his fear. He was fearful and cowardly, using that sort of language. But at the end of it, he went on the journey. He persisted. He went through that dark forest and all the perils that lay within, and the Wicked Witch of the East and what have you, and got there and got his but he already had it when he arrived because he'd already gone through it and earned it. And the same with the Scarecrow, in the sense of, not being, we feel stupid, we feel unintelligent, but we are where we are already. We've got over many a hurdle, and we're going to come across many more on a simple daily basis on how to boil a kettle with no plug. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. We will solve those problems as we encounter them, and when we get to the other end, we will find we've already learned, we've already grown. It's the fact we go on the journey. Now, I don't know what Toto's doing half the time. It could be just a companionship, but maybe George has an opinion on what the hell Toto's doing there.
He was the dog.
I know he's the dog. But did he identify as a cat is the question.
Well, he may have done because he watched our last episode on that particular subject.
Exactly. No, that cat identified as a dog. This dog identifies absolutely. As a cat. Yeah, you got to get the right way around.
I think what was interesting about the lion in that particular film, that particular story, was the fact that he never lost his fear. None of us will lose the fear. What we're doing, where the courage comes in, is that we're prepared to push that down, that fear away. We know it's there, and against it, we will go against it to face those fears.
Back to that saying, it's not the absence of fear, it's the mastery of fear. It's the resistance to fear. But be afraid. We're not saying when the time is right. This is an inbuilt instinct in our bodies, the fight and flight. There's a time for fear. But that is a time and place for everything. Don't let it rule their lives. But be mindful of it and give it the airtime it so justly requires, if and when it requires it. But don't build it up through your chatterbox of trying to fear a lot of unknown scenarios that may and more than likely never will happen. So don't build it up unnecessarily.
And I think what's important there is that fear is a function that's important because you have to get that balance between the fear and the courage. If you run off without the fear, you could run into, as we talked about before, the bear with the beer. But if you have the fear, it'll give you the warnings of what the dangers could be that you could face. Then you can work yourself through those dangers in a more astute way, in a more positive attitude way.
I'm realizing that we or I have done the opposite of what we've said. We're trying to take the positive, being the courage, but we seem to be concentrating on the fear. But what we're probably being mindful of is others like ourselves that we don't have the courage yet. We're trying to get the courage. We're trying to go on the journey, not from fear and afraid, but just not being comfortable in our skin, or a new skin that we'd like to have, and so it's not fear in terms of graveyards at night and vampires looming. It's not that type of fear for the moment. It could be for some people, I don't know. But my fear, or so-called wording, is I'd rather use the positive. I'm building up the courage to go out there and give it a go. Whatever that is, this is it. We're going to give it a go.
I think it's important that I think what we're really coming down to is that although we want to go with the courageous and the heroic and everything else, what we're beginning to realize is that even the hero has the fear. And there's a combination of those two that balances. It's your yin and yang from the very first episode keeps coming back.
So what's Superman's kryptonite? It's everybody has a kryptonite.
But if you can face your own kryptonite, you can then, that's where the courage comes in. Bravery is really against your own fears that can cripple you, forcing your way forward to do something courageous and being brave. Brave people aren't fearless. They're fearful of what could happen, knowing what could happen, but they have the courage to use whatever they have available to them to conquer those fears and go forward and accomplish the goals.
Now, what's interesting, I think sometimes the fear of being alone. Now, again, I don't like to use the word fear. Have the courage to ask for help. Have the courage to surround yourself with more positive people. Have your courage not to listen to the naysayers and the doom mongers. It's have the courage to turn off the news and not bombard yourself with we know which is sad and bad stories. So it's actually the other way around. You're going, have the courage of your own convictions. Be you, be the best you. It might even be okay to be you. You don't need to do mad and powerful and courageous things if you're happy in your own skin. It's only if you're not happy, if you feel you're missing out, if you want to be more and to be a bigger fish in a smaller pond, or, a big fish in a small pond, or whichever way it is. It doesn't, I just think there's more. I want to do more, I want to be more, and I was just bubbling away knowing there's something else, and I don't know what it is. I have to go find it. I'm on the journey to the Wizard of Oz. I'm looking behind the curtain. I don't know what's there yet. There better be a lot of fucking surprises, and I'm hoping it's going to be like a Christmas where there's a bunch of different things, or it might just be you always had it. We know it ends that way. When you get there, you will already have it all because you would have gone on a bunch of journeys. That's the real game. Life, go on a journey of life. And when we get to the Wizard of Oz, God or whoever or whatever, or another trip on the merry-go-round, it'll all be okay on the night.
And I think the other thing is that quite often we set up unrealistic expectations for ourselves. And because we can't achieve those, because we've set those goals too high, we become so negative and critical of ourselves. But then if we go without the overall expectations, like, for example, I've gone to see a movie and I've suddenly thought, I've heard this is not going to be great, and then it turns out to be the best movie I've ever seen because actually my expectations that weren't being met
not preconceived notions, perhaps.
So the best thing is not to have preconceived ideas of what you think is going to happen, and actually just enjoy the journey and not be constantly criticizing it.
I'm going to finish off on this one. I got dumped on Christmas Eve many a year ago, and I went shopping with my sisters. And on that day, I bumped into a friend of the ex that just dumped me. And she says, "How are you, Garvin?" I says, "A little bit miffed. Got dumped this morning." And she says, "Oh, that's terrible." And I says, "Do you want to come, shopping?" No, I asked her the question. You wouldn't by any chance know any young, white, single females, available, free, available. And she says, "Funnily enough, you say that, there'll be one along any moment." And she was about to meet her best friend. And that best friend became my wife.
Thanks.
So I'm still on the rebound over 20 years later. And I hold that one against my wife to this day. And funnily enough, she went off with her friend that day and done their shopping after they had lunch with us. And while out with her, the friend asked her, "What did you think of this bloke?" And she said, "I'm going to marry him." And I pretty much kept her to it. So we didn't know how things had turned out. And what started off a very, very bad day being dumped on Christmas Eve turned out to be the thing that led to me to be exactly here with the family I have. So you never know.
And on that, we'll say thanks for listening and look forward to having you as an audience in the next episode.
Hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe and click on the bell for notifications.